Welcome to the podcast supported by the Writing for Success grant, a 100% federally funded community projects grant of $385,000 to support literacy in the Milledgeville, Baldwin County community. I'm your host, Jess McQuain, project coordinator. Grab a snack and pull up a chair. I'm glad you're here. Welcome back to the Writing for Success podcast for another Writer Wednesday. On Writer Wednesday, we hear from writers and teachers of writing about their writing process, advice for young writers, and general discussion of what writing means to them.
Hi, and welcome back to the Writing for Success podcast. I'm Julia Jensen. I'm the intern for Andalusia Institute this semester, and I will be your host for today's episode. I have a guest with me today, Professor Peter Selgin. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Well, I'm Professor Peter Selgin, and I teach creative writing in the English department here at GCSU in both our graduate and undergraduate programs. And I also teach a course in journal editing and design for the college.
Awesome. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your work and what you do for that?
Well, I have different aspects of my work. I'm a writer and a visual artist. I've mostly written prose, books about writing, several novels, a book of short stories, a couple of essay collections, and a children's book. And then I have a visual art side, which is painting and graphic design, and some illustration too.
Awesome. You have a wide profile there. So you have a way of combining art and writing, which I found really interesting when I was looking at your website and stuff. So what was your introduction to writing and art? Did these skills kind of come naturally to you, or what was the spark that you initially knew that's what you wanted to do?
Well, drawing came naturally. Drawing was the first thing, and visual art came naturally when I was young and as far back as kindergarten and probably even earlier. I did not have a natural gift that I was aware of for writing, and I tended to be one of those people who, if you gave me a book, I would flip through it backwards and look at the pictures, if there were any. So the writing thing happened many years later when I was a second-year student at Pratt Institute, which is an art and design college in Brooklyn, New York. And I'll try to tell the story as briefly as possible, but I was criticized by my painting teacher, who called me an artistic illiterate because I was doing rather facile, glib, pretty pictures in his painting class, and he kept trying to get me to go somewhere deeper. And I think he was frustrated with me. Anyway, I felt there was truth in what he said, and I was upset by it, even though I didn't show it. I pretended to be aloof and arrogant and all that. But I went home that day in a dejected state and happened to turn on my little portable TV that I had in my little room and caught the middle of a movie called Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which is based on the play by Edward Albee. And in this scene, Richard Burton, one of the actors, was delivering a monologue. And I listened to that monologue and I was absolutely mesmerized. And then I watched the rest of the movie, and the next day went to the Pratt Library, found the play, found the monologue, read the monologue, and that's when I had a sort of burning bush inspiration. I thought, wow, these words mesmerized me. What if I could mesmerize people with words? What if I could have that power? And I started writing then.
Wow.
That's exactly how it happened.
That is a neat introduction to writing. I feel like that's different than most other stories that writers would tell you.
I guess so. I started writing plays for that reason.
Okay.
That was my real first, the first thing that interested me as a writer was a play. That was the first thing that really caught fire.
Do you still do plays, or do you more so focus on just books?
I haven't been writing plays for years, though a play that I wrote years ago and have rewritten a few times more recently was produced for the first time here in Georgia.
Oh,
in
wow.
Athens. And it was a wonderful production starring our own Steve Elliott Gower and Julia Rosing, who is affiliated with the university and has done acting here. And it was a terrific production at the Town and Gown Players. Gosh, was it last summer? I think it was last
Wow.
summer. And it was wonderful. I wish it were still running. But quite an experience to see a play come alive, to see your words come alive that way, is really, there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
There's nothing like it.
Yeah. So as an author, what role does research play in your writing?
Well, I would say it's a sort of as needed. You know, if you're writing whatever you're writing, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, often there are things you just don't know enough about. And if you want to make your work either truthful in the case of nonfiction or believable in the case of fiction, you want to do some research and get certain things right.
Yeah.
And so, for instance, a novel that's coming out of mine in November of this year, for a section of it, I had to do quite a bit of research about German prisoners of war. Not American prisoners of war, but German prisoners who were kept in internment camps, or in POW camps, rather, all over the country in the United States during the war. And a lot of people don't know about that. And the life there and how the camps were set up and, you know, what different things that happened with those prisoners.
Wow.
It was a lot of fun, and learned things that I never knew before, and was able to put more authenticity into the story I was telling by doing that research.
It definitely gives you an avenue to be able to learn more about specific topics, for sure.
Yeah, and then you end up with research, you know, you go down these wormholes, and sometimes you're just pulled in a different direction than you ever thought you were going to go, and you learn something you never expected to learn, and it might even change the story that you're writing.
It gives you a new opportunity.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's really neat. To kind of go along with that, how do you kind of approach a blank page when writing a new novel or book of some sort?
With a certain amount of terror and disgust, because I don't like the initial part of writing is, to me, the most painful, when there's nothing there at all. And it's almost as if you have to sort of hold your nose, for me, and take the plunge. Get something on paper somehow, force yourself. Because I love to edit. I love to then take this blob of clay that I've made, or whatever it is, and then go in and refine it and make it nice. But we have to get something on the page.
Yeah. Do you find that to be similar with art too? Or is it more so different?
A little bit. There's an analogy there. When I have a blank, let's say I have a blank canvas in front of me, the first thing I do is dirty it.
Yeah.
I'll take a kind of neutral color like an ochre or a pale brown and just do a wash so that I don't have to look at the blank canvas.
That's exactly what I found myself doing.
Yeah, I don't have that intimidating, blinding, screeching whiteness that says empty, empty, empty. It sort of defies you.
Exactly.
And so I just answer it back with a bunch of ochre paint and splat it on there and say, take that.
Yeah.
And then I'm able to, to get past that glare of whiteness. And it's the same with the written page. You know, Goethe said, whatever it is that you want to begin it. Just do it. You have to just write the first sentence, write something, and break that glaring blankness.
Yeah.
And then once you take that first step, it's a lot easier to go from there. It's it's the dread before you, jump in the water. Jump in the water. It's not that bad.
It's like jumping in the deep end, for sure.
Start swimming. Which I like to do.
Yeah. So when you're designing book covers, do you usually either, I guess this would be referring to ones that aren't your books, do you read the book first, or how do you go about illustrating a cover like that?
Well, at the risk of shocking some of my clients, I don't read the whole book usually, because if you have, say, a 300-page manuscript, that's a 6-hour endeavor. And again, it depends. If I read as much of a book as I feel I need to understand the book well enough to have the sense of tone and certainly the plot and characters and all that. But often I get a synopsis or a detailed summary. I read a few chapters to get the tone. I talk it over with the author or the publisher. And again, if I need to read more, I read more. I do whatever The other thing, too, is you don't want to know too much. Because book covers, you should never try to tell the whole story. What you want to do is suggest enough to compel people to enter the book.
I guess that's true, yeah.
The same way you wouldn't tell the whole story of a novel in the first paragraph. You just want to bring them in. And a good book cover does that. It makes you pick the book up. It makes you maybe turn it around and look at the description of the book and want to read the first page.
I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah, you want to invite, and you want to not deceive them. You don't want to hold out something that may be alluring, but is deceptive, isn't really capturing what they're going to get when they get inside the book. So it has to be an honest sales pitch for the book, and attractive. I always want my book covers to stand out. I don't want them to follow any trendy formulas. So that if they're on a book of table at Barnes & Noble, there's something about them that draws you to them.
Do you have a way to stay away from trendy ideas, or how do you make something so original and unique?
Well, I've never been one to follow trends particularly, and you can see what they are. One of the ways that I avoid trends is taking my inspiration from the whole history of book cover design. So I'm not shy about looking through, for instance, books of book cover design that go back into even the 1920s. And because there's a lot of history there. So I think having that awareness of the long range of styles and histories and things that have been done before, you're not trapped in just the ethos, the aesthetics of the last 10 or 20 years. And, sometimes the old is new, becomes new again. And then it's sometimes just a matter of playing in the mud. You start playing around with a font and move the title this way, and you splash a color here and there, and something happens, just like when you're improvising, making a painting. Something happens, and you get an idea, and you work off that. And the next thing you know, you've got a design that you think, wow, that works.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. A lot of times, the best results are not predictable. Like if you think, and this is true with any medium, with writing, with painting, book cover design, if you think you know exactly what you're going to do and you can just kind of follow the steps, that is probably going to arrive dead on arrival.
Yeah.
It's like painting by numbers. It's dead. And there has to be risk. There has to be surprise. There has to be something that happens that you didn't plan.
Yeah.
That's what's going to make it special, the thing you didn't plan.
Yeah. That's good advice for sure. So since you're an author and an artist, is there a certain time you kind of prefer to write or a certain time you prefer to do art? Like, how do you kind of differentiate between those two different things?
Well, I don't segregate them into one time or the other. More typically, if I'm in a painting phase or working on a painting, that's it. I don't split myself. I don't paint in the morning, say, now I'm going to work on my novel. It's 3:00. I tend to be more obsessive about whatever project I'm working on and not want to do anything else while I'm doing that. I like to start in the morning.
Oh, really?
First thing in the morning, yeah, a cup of coffee, and go into the studio or sit down at my desk before the distractions start coming along. So I get up early, 6:00, 6:30.
Oh, wow.
And try to enter the world before there's time for those first emails, phone messages, news reports, anything that's going to sort of possibly knock me off the tracks and distract me. And
kind of gets just your mind locked in on it.
Well, I think writers and artists, if they're like me, are always looking for an excuse not to work. So if somebody sends you an email or something and says, oh, can you do so-and-so? You'll go, oh, great, I'll do this, because now I have a good excuse not to tackle the blank.
I can find myself in that kind of same situation as well.
So the trick is to beat everyone to the punch. Get to your studio, get to your writing first before any possible reason to do something else comes along.
Wow.
And then once you're into it, if the email comes, you'll push it aside because you're
already in the groove.
Yeah,
in the mode.
You got to get yourself in the groove. That's why getting up early for me is very important.
Yeah.
To do that.
So as an artist, do your pieces of work usually have a story behind them? Do you go like in with a theme in your mind, or is it kind of just whatever you're feeling that day?
It's more whatever I'm feeling that day. I have certain themes that I seem to return to time and again. And they're fairly simple. You know, cityscape. I like to do ship paintings, which harken back to my childhood memories of seeing ships in New York Harbor and the fascination that grew from that since I was a boy. So those ship paintings returned me to my boyhood sense of wonder, fascination, awe, and joy that I felt back then, seeing those ships for the first time, you know, when I was 6 or 7 years old. But otherwise, as far as narrative or mythology or anything deeper or symbolic, no. My paintings are rather aggressively, I hate to say it, but they are what they are. If I do a painting of a flower, it's a painting of a flower. I don't want to say too much beyond the sense of joy that the object gives me, that the subject gives me. I want to convey that as guilelessly, as simply and innocently as possible.
Yeah.
And to me, if there's any depth, it's the depth of innocence. It's the depth of simplicity, the depth of naivete. I don't want to be one of these artists, and I couldn't if I wanted to, who has, you know, a long, detailed, profound artistic statement about the messages that they're conveying. I have no message. My message is joy, charm, pleasure, simplicity, and innocence. Those are my messages.
Yeah. I feel like as an artist too, it can be kind of hard to like face the stereotypes of all your art having to have like that deep meaning.
Yeah. Maybe my professor was right. Maybe I am an autistic illiterate, but I think that there's a place for the innocent eye, and that's what I try to get. I try to see the world through a sort of innocent, somewhat naive, boyish, or childlike.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that because it's a good way to kind of approach your art if you always have the same mindset.
Anti-sophisticated.
Yes. So what do you do if you ever get like reader's block or an artist's block? Like, how do you attack that?
Well, when I get writer's block or painter's block or whatever block, I am attacking it because what's happening is I am creatively procrastinating. In other words, the way I give myself writer's block is by doing other things. So it's not as if I'm lying there blocked and staring at the ceiling. It means that I'm doing something constructive and creative, but it's not writing or it's not painting. So in other words, how do I deal with writer's block? I paint. How do I deal with painter's block? I write.
Wow.
Those are my escapes. The only third escape is to go swimming, which I like to do. So by trapping myself within those three things, I'm probably always doing one of them.
Really?
While avoiding the other two.
Wow, that's interesting. What advice would you give to younger artists?
Well, keep a notebook. If you're a visual artist, even though you may enjoy and master using apps like Photoshop and virtual apps, draw freehand. Draw with a pen, pencil, draw from life. It's very important to work from life directly. You can't get the same result from photographs. You've got to go out. In New York, I used to ride the subways with a sketch pad, and I would sketch people on the subways.
Oh, really?
But at a meeting, we have department meetings here all the time, every month. And I've always got something to draw on, and I sketch as much as I can get away with for a number of reasons. to keep boredom at bay, but because that's my natural outlet. But any opportunity you have to go out and sketch people, trees, landscapes.
Just keeps your mind moving.
Well, and by developing that hand, even though, again, when you're using Photoshop, you may not be drawing freehand, it trains your eye in a way that it can't be trained any other way, that experience. And as far as people who are interested in painting goes, I would say learn to draw. I think a big mistake, people want to paint and they haven't learned how to draw. You cannot paint if you don't know how to draw. You can't even do a good abstract painting if you don't know how to draw. It shows. It shows in the final product. And so drawing is fundamental.
Yeah.
With writing, I mean, you keep a journal, write.
Yeah. Just keep writing.
Just keep writing and read a lot. Read a lot and try to learn how to, when you read, notice what the writers are doing. Notice how they punctuate dialogue. Pay attention to the details, because the writers you read, the works you read, those are going to be your teachers. They're going to teach you how to write. People like me who teach in colleges and such, we facilitate that project. But your real teachers are all the writers who have written wonderful things. If you would learn from them, they can teach you everything you have to know.
Wow, that's good advice for sure, especially as a professor too. I feel like you can kind of pour into a lot of your students as well with that.
Well, and just think who you can learn from. You want Chekhov to be your teacher? You got him.
Yeah.
Joan Didion, Dostoevsky, Shakespeare, they're all there to teach you. One-on-one.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that, because that's how novels, that's what they're for, right?
Yeah.
They provide advice for you. Is there somewhere that people can find your work today to be able to kind of learn more about you and your story?
Well, they can go online. They can go to any number of bookstores if they want to order a book. They're available, most of them. As far as my artwork, that too is online and websites. It can be seen. And otherwise you have to come to my house. I have lots of paintings on the wall.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. That is all I have for you.
Well, it's my pleasure, Julia. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
The Flannery O'Connor Institute for the Humanities is dedicated to cultivating the legacy of Flannery O'Connor and encouraging public engagement with the humanities. Follow us on social media: O'Connor Institute GCSU on Facebook, o'connorinstitute.gcsu on Instagram, O'Connor Institute GCSU on YouTube, and O'Connor Institute on Spotify.